The problem though is now you're basically limited to a single avenue of approach, right? So very limited access where you can start pushing your forces. The intent of the amphibious assault was to open more areas and kind of force the Ukrainians to prioritize where to defend. If Odessa is now, not at risk of amphibious assault, if I'm the Ukrainian, it's like, okay, I don't if Odessa is now, not at reinforce those positions. Oh, and by the way, you have given. I'm just a little bit single good day for an amphibious assault weather-wise. Maybe I have to look into it. I'm not 100% sure. Wolverine, you raise your hand, please correct me.
Well, we got to remember is which I brought up before is that the landing craft that the Russians are using are all flat bottomed, and what we may see or perceive as not being bad weather, you have to look at the sea state, and if the sea state is too high, then they cannot launch those amphibious forces. The Marine Corps even has to worry about that. Their AAVs can go into a higher sea state than probably some of the Russian assets can. But that is actually a huge thing that they have to look at when they're doing amphibious operations.
Interesting. Okay, then we'll just we'll stick with the consensus of weather. But they
There
lost a
was there
lot of
was a
supplies
day
maintained.
window, but the
Uh-huh.
issue. So is the consensus then that what we think is going to happen is they're going to run out of supplies. They're going to still
That could actually be effectively resupplied. By Russian forces that they don't have to worry about enough fire support without even using aircraft from the Navy ships that they have down there. They can also pull in their Kilo class submarines, and their Kilos can also provide some fire support for those South forces down south. Now, those ships can also still be resupplied by the Black Sea Fleet because they have what we call fleet oilers. Basically, they're a ship that carries the fuel for them, and they typically, when they refuel, they also get resupplied with munitions from those ships as well. So I'm actually surprised that they haven't just tried doing something like that, and actually like beaching the ships like they can do um, in an area that is very light contested, or if not contested at all, and resupply the southern areas from there, and then continue on trying to do what they do. So that's actually a huge failure on their part. just because they have so many assets that they can actually pull from the Black Sea Fleet and put out there, and the Ukrainians, for the most part, won't be able to really do a whole lot to them unless they've got, I mean, some of their Iskander M's down there or something like that. They can hit the ships, but then even the ships still have their point defense weapon systems that would actually be able to handle some of those Iskanders if they were thrown at them. So um, that's something that they're severely missing out on, and that I think that would be actually probably the most viable way to actually resupply their forces in the south. The north, you know, the only way they would be able to do it effectively is if they had pre-positioned stocks, which they should have, and I'm very surprised that they did not pre-position enough stocks throughout that whole area. And that's a huge failure on the Russian military if they did not provide enough stocks. Or it could be like we said all along, those stocks are not getting being pushed south, north to south, because of the traffic jams and all the other issues. So, but that's the huge thing on that is just the Russians have a huge capability to resupply land forces via sea assets, and they have not taken it on. They don't even have to do an actual um, a. I'm not going to use the term amphibious assault because that's not the correct term for the Russian naval infantry, because they don't do amphibious assaults, but they can do an amphibious landing and bring assets and supplies and stuff like that to the Russian forces on the southern areas.
So the reports are. Sorry, Osen, Defender, go for it.
No, you're all good. I'll go ahead very quickly. I think that the biggest worry right now with the Russian Navy and why we haven't seen them utilized much, they could do these sort of beaching operations in the Sea of Azov, and I think we've already seen them do that a little bit. The issue with the Black systems, I think, from what I've heard, they have around 20 still in inventory, possibly more, and they seem to be primarily stationed near Odessa and towards the south near Romania. So any sort of, and they've also, it sounds like, mined the whole area near Odessa quite heavily. Up to Mykolaiv. So any sort of naval landing or beaching operation that they do try and pull up there, I mean, there is a risk that there could be multiple Russian ships that get either sunk or extremely damaged, especially if they pull in some of these cruisers into more shallow waters to try and support a ground. A landing operation. So I think that's kind of why they've been extremely hesitant. Not just the weather and the supply issues. I think that definitely plays a role in it.
Ulcers?
Osa, just to your question, I shared in the nest Michael Kaufman, and I think it's just interesting that basically it's to our point, like hey, we see a ceasefire and all that, but Michael Kaufman, for our listeners who don't know, if you want to understand Russian military, follow Michael Kaufman. He's great, very smart, very knowledgeable, and what I think where we're getting this 3 days, I think it was the Bellingcat comment, and then even Marco Rubio tweeted about it recently about their issues of supply that they're running around low, and I think even Marco Rubio said it's 72 hours. I'll confirm that. But what Michael Kaufman basically said is that he gives this the Russians basically 3 more weeks, and before they come and quote an exhausted force. In other words, that exhausted in terms of combat effectiveness. And combat effectiveness, for our listeners to understand, combat effectiveness means, are you able to basically execute your mission efficiently and effectively, right? And he's giving them at most 3 weeks until we probably see a ceasefire. And I think the lines will, or an attempt for a ceasefire. And if I'm the Ukrainians, I'd be like, no, I'm not going to give it to you. Get the hell out of my country, and then you can have your ceasefire, because we're not seeing the Ukrainians having any of these issues. Surprisingly, right? It's kind of like reverse where we were a week ago. So I just wanted to share that for the thread, and I will confirm if Marco Rubio tweeted it was 3 days, but I'll confirm that.
Wolverine.
So
Wolverine.
sorry. So I forgot who it was that said it. So as far as the mines, so the Russians have minesweepers. Twenty or so Neptunes. You know, what happens with the naval side is that all ships are operating off the same exact system. They have the same exact equipment, and they can transfer the data back and forth between all ships without really having to do anything. And the U.S. Navy does the same thing. So what happens is with the missiles and coming in, once one ship picks it up, the data is already transferred to all the other ships, and all the other ships, as soon as they get the indication that there's an inbound to engage those incoming. So the Russian Navy would actually fare probably a lot better against those types than like if a ground force had to deal with something like that. But that's just a kind of like an inherent thing to the Navy. But their amphibious ships also do have point close in weapon systems, and their amphibious ships are actually quite heavily armed for an amphibious ship as well. So they do have the firepower, they have the capability, they have the radar coverage, and they have their own other assets that they can actually call in and actually to defeat the Neptunes if there are even that many on hand. And I would actually expect to see a lot less losses from an anti-ship missile on those guys compared uh, from the Neptune missiles, actually. So, like I said, they have a lot of different things that a lot of people. Everybody actually really appreciates how it works, and that's why the U.S.'s carrier battle groups are so successful, because you have one ship that its sole purpose in life is to direct the whole anti-air defense system. So typically, it's a Ticonderoga class cruiser, and then that cruiser links with all the other destroyers. We're now mainly destroyers, and once they get the frigates out, it'll link with the frigates too. But they can link all those ships together with the aircraft carriers systems and its aircraft when they're airborne, and they actually have a huge picture for hundreds of miles out of their battle space, and they can actually see a lot of stuff coming at them before. Looked up the
That should be significant bolster to the Ukrainian military.
And that's at one airfield alone, based on that New York Times article. The other
Right,
airfield.
right.
That was from the poll reporter who was traveling with General Milley.
Reporter with the Kiev Independent has reported that the nuclear power plant from last night is back under Ukrainian control.
Yeah, I saw that. I'm not really sure how much I believe that.
I think it's a little out of context. I think it's under administrative control of the Ukrainians, which, you know.
At gunpoint.
Your right sirens, Keith.
And Journey. There are reports that the military strategy of Russia might be changing to be focused on creating that land corridor that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, and again, they pretty much have it. They just have to take Mariupol, which, again, they were trying very hard to, and it seems like today they kind of waned off. They might be having, again, trouble with logistics and a lot of the weapons they've been using on this city. So we'll just have to see. Because, again, they've tried to launch offensives on Mariupol over the last couple of days, and all of them have ended in disaster just because it is so heavily defended. And it's defended by specifically the Azov Battalion, which is known for just its insanity in combat. So that doesn't really surprise me that they're having so much issues.
Yeah, the easternmost part, southeastern part, is defended by Azov specifically. They actually reported that they repelled 4 waves of Russian armor today, I believe, or this morning. So, yeah, but still they're having a hard time because they're being shelled from... The city itself is being shelled from 4 sides and from the sea as well. I think I had a visual or a graphic that indicated what regiments are currently in Mariupol. Not just Azov, but 3 more Ukrainian Army and National Guards regiments or units. So Azov specifically holds this southeastern part. So I believe we had a couple of questions here. Matt Quinn, did you want to ask something? Or Jason Bates.
Hey, Walter, thanks. Just one follow-up to the prior conversation regarding the Russian supply problem conditions. If those were to continue to play out, are there any scenarios where Ukraine could reasonably attempt to regain Crimea in the near to medium terms?
From what I heard, during the negotiation process, they try to push the idea that Russian-occupied Donetsk and Luhansk should return to Ukraine unconditionally, and in regards of Crimea, it can be discussed. So that was the stance. But again, the situation is fluid. The further this lasts, as it is, the stronger Ukrainian army and resistance becomes. So the time is on the Ukraine's side.
Yeah, I think people really need to understand how much the Russians have lost so far. I'm going to post a link up top just of the absolute confirmed losses visually. And visually, the Russians have lost over 636 pieces of equipment. And I think it's confirmed that they've lost almost 10,000 forces, if not more than that. And that doesn't even count the casualties that are not fatal and the prisoners of war. So, I mean, the Russians have already taken a beating. Of course, the Ukrainians have too. But I mean, it's absolutely astronomical compared to if you compare it to, let's say, the invasion of Georgia or the invasion of Chechnya. I mean, this is this is more than both of those combined easily.
Thank you. I fear that Crimea would be theoretically an off-ramp. Now, of course, if we were to say that right now, maybe we would have different thoughts, and we would say that in another week or two or month, I suppose. But I just would. It's scary to think that an agreement would be set where we would go back to trusting Russia with Crimea again at some point, if we were in the position of pushing them out.
Yeah, I believe it's still too far-fetched at this point.
Understood. I do appreciate y'all's response. Thanks for all of your hard work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I believe Matt Quinn also wanted to ask something. If not, we can move on. Specifically to Stavros. Stavros, do you have a question?
Hi guys, and thank you so much for doing all these the last week. You've been my company, and definitely you are doing a great job here, showing the world and the power of the people in the open source intelligence community. I just wanted to. I'm glad I heard something about the Odessa situation, and I just wanted to stress out how important it will be for the next day of this event that we're experiencing right now, that we're not going to have an enclosed region situation. I just want to stress out how important it will be for Ukraine to keep access to the Black Sea, and considering also that on the Moldova part we have a Transnistria, I think it's the name, another region that's like a pro-Russian region. So we definitely, if the Russian forces reach that region, I think they're gonna put a lot of pressure from the north part of Odessa, and I just want to say that I consider it very important for the country to have access to the sea, have access to trade, have access to exclusive economic zones, and we all focus on Kiev, and if someone looks, and I understand that, and I know that this is tragic what's going on there, but if we see this thing from a different perspective, and we see a map with the resources and of Ukraine, we're going to see that right now the Russian forces are pushing in regions that are really rich in natural resources, especially the regions around the river close to the power plant, where we see a lot of resources with uranium deposits, and it's just I feel that a plan is to push to control all the areas, all the exits to the Black Sea in the end. It's imprinted in my mind, and I don't know how to take out of it. And I see all the movements of the Russian troops in the past 2 days, like focusing on this stuff, securing all this thing. They have already secured the Sea of Azov and the Straits, and I just want to stress out that matter and how important it is for the Ukrainian people and the Ukrainian army to hold Odessa and hold these regions, and I really hope they do. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Mary, did you have a chance to ask your question?
Hi, Walter. Actually, my question is for you.
what can we do for you today? What can we do for you tomorrow? Some of us are probably tuning in recently. Some have been following you for at least a week or so. And I just wonder if you could just talk about what we can do for you.
Absolutely. First of all, acknowledge my contributors. It's not just me here. It's Ocean Defender, Patrick Fox, All Sources News, Ocean UK, Wolverine, and a number of other people who are not present right now, but they are regular contributors. So, and Grammar as well, obviously. So please follow them. They are sources of credible information, and obviously something that I have been promoting or pushing people to do for a while. Just support and donate if possible to save life in UA, which is just a prime source, not source, but prime effort to help Ukraine in its fight against Russian invasion. There are other credible volunteer organizations like Serhiy Pratula's Fund and other ones, but they are smaller, and I personally believe that we can focus on that one, like which is Save Life in UA, considering they act in direct cooperation with the Ukrainian government. And they help with the relief effort and humanitarian effort, and most importantly, they help Ukrainian volunteers and mobilized Ukrainians to gear them up, and they actually operate at the very front in the war zone, so to say. So yeah, please follow my co-hosts, follow our speakers here, and stick around. We'll keep doing this.
Yes, and for the whole panel, I actually have been listening to all of you, and I appreciate all your perspectives and everything you have to say. Walter, I just know for you, this is probably more personal than many of us on this panel, and that's why I wanted to signal you out and ask you what we can do for you. Thank you.
It's like tough question. I'm I'm doing my part here, just trying to do my part. So again, just as I mentioned, stick around, promote this, follow our speakers and co-hosts, and we'll keep doing this and trying to deliver credible information, analyze it, and I'm I'm trying to bring up people from Ukraine, first-hand accounts, to this space so that you hear their voices as well. And pretty much it, yeah. And consider donating to save life in the UA. Go ahead, Wolverine.
So a couple of things. I don't know if anybody's seen it or not, but a reporter from the Kiev Independent has has put out an article or a statement saying that the nuclear power plant in Zaporizhia is back under Ukrainian control. And there was one other thing. I can't remember if this is the one individual who talked with us the other day. But from coming from it's a journalist, I think, with the same paper. They're reporting street fighting in Sumy right now.
Suma still has a street fighting. It's been encircled, and the situation was tough in there. So there actually were narrowing the circle. So I believe that just is a continuation of this, worrisome development.
Yeah, but at least the one about the nuclear power plant is good news, at least.
Oh yeah, absolutely. If that is confirmed, it's good news.
Was Hostamel
previously under Russian control, because it's now completely under Ukrainian control. I don't know if that's a change or not.
It was it was under Russian control. It was semi-contested. Actually, so let's kind of track back a little bit. After initial Russian airdrop failed, and it was recaptured on the second day, I believe, on the second day by Ukrainian forces. Then we had this initial Russian push from the north, from Belarus, with a large amount of Russian armor, and they managed to recapture Hostomel. And they tried to push into Bucha, and as far as Irpin, Bucha, and then we had these intrusions into outskirts of Kiev, and minor ones. But again, they didn't control the neighboring woods and territories, so they were subjected to, attacks by Ukrainian special forces and other units. So again, at this point, if we have a confirmation that Ukrainian troops recaptured Hostomel again, then it's going to be a second recapturing of Hostomel by Ukrainian troops, I believe.
It seems like that's what's just happened. Yeah.
Can you send me the link to that really quick about the Hostomel? Because if that's true, that is currently where the convoy is. So I'm sure they are freaking out.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. It's like a local Ukrainian sources, but trustworthy.
Yeah, I wonder what happened to that. There was a large number of anti-air assets that they pulled or pushed into that area. Russians did. So,
well,
interesting.
From one picture, I looked up some pictures earlier, Walter, and one picture I actually specifically looked for is a picture of the system operational, and then the other one was not operational. So the one, and I compared it to the one at the convoy. So it looks like they're not actually firing up some of their radars at all. So they may not actually be operational right now. And operational meaning that they aren't radiating with their radars.
So radars are off. They haven't deployed the secondary systems.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Can I ask a non-military question for a second? What are the signals we would look for to understand if there's a power play in progress in Russia at the moment?
You mean somebody else trying to take power from Putin?
Yeah, just from a signal point of view, what will you look for if there's clearly?
I think it would be we would not know until it happened kind of thing. We might see some movements. I mean, right now I've been tracking why there's a bunch of military planes leaving Moscow. Not that I think it's necessarily related to that at all. Just for instance, we might see some movements. We might, some of the people who track the oligarchs' jets and all that. We might see something out of the ordinary, but I don't think we would necessarily see.
Not in his nature at all at this stage.
That's a fair point. Yeah, I mean, it could be that, or it could just be right now. I think mostly it's quiet because he's got a lot of crap he's bringing from the far east of Russia to try and get into Ukraine and stuff.
That'll take weeks to resupply, so that's not now.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, they might all be scrambling to figure out how to try and keep this going or something like that. But yeah, I mean, it could definitely. We would probably see a little bit of something, but I don't think it would necessarily be. We would be able to attribute it to that.
The thing is, there's a couple ways it could go down, right? So, but yeah, anyway, we shouldn't speculate too much. But Aman, did you have a question?
Hey, how you doing, guys? It's not a question. It's more of a Passus prologue. You just have to look at it's the same way power has shifted there, whether it's the USSR or when 91, when um, the prior guy to Putin and
Yeltsin.
Yeltsin. Thank you, Boris Yeltsin. Jesus, I was just thinking about him like 2 hours ago. How the power shifts, and the same thing with Brezhnev when he came in and when he left, and how he left. You got to remember, a lot of the power structure has been KGB centric, and it would still think that once a KGB, always a KGB. Like once a Marine, always a Marine. So I think it's going to be the same way. You'll have that lull. You'll have probably coalitions within coalitions. And I don't know if you guys seen that movie, The Death of Stalin. It's very much like that. You never know. You could end up thinking you're in power and all. Just look at the power structure and whoever is around them. I don't think right now he's has enough of the. I think even his head of intelligence doesn't have. I mean, there is a purpose of why he is who is in power for him in those. I think would come out of his out of not out of his immediate circle, but the concentric circles around him, where they would coalesce and I'm talking about the second tier that actually is not as invested in him being in power, but as invested in the system being in power, and that's where you'll see the changes. And those when those coalesce, be careful.
Gustav?
Yeah, so I wanted to ask about the tank warfare and the javelin missiles in the in-law. So it really seems like the Russians have lost a lot of armor and in vehicles, and U.S. Special Operations Command just said 290 got destroyed. Is this because the Russians are deploying relatively old armor in units, or is it really because tank warfare has really changed with all these, infantry carried weapons and things like that?
Yeah, go for it, Wolverine.
So the tanks they have are a lot of their tanks are actually their most current upgraded tanks. Whether they have their newest upgraded T-72s, T-90s, and or T-80s. So it's not that the tanks are no longer good. It's that just the armor systems or the anti-armor systems have gotten better. So you're gonna have to look at it like this. This is the first time the Russians are going up against an anti-armor system like the Javelin. They've seen a little bit of the use on TV back during the Operation Iraqi Freedom back in 2003, and a little bit later on. But those were older Iraqi T-72s that had nowhere near the amount of armor that the current T-72s have. So uh, it's that's part of the problem, and two, and this is an inherent design thing with any tank ever built, is that the way the attack profiles of the javelins, the way they are, is the javelin is its primary is top attack, and that's because as any tanker knows, the top of the tank is the weakest point on the tank. So they specifically design the javelins to attack on the top, so they meet less armor and they have a better kill rate and they have a better kill ratio.
I see. I thought there were some Russian tanks that had, active measures like the Israeli Merkava tanks, that are able to destroy the missiles in flight. Maybe not.
Well, so they currently have two systems. One is Stora, one is Arena. Stora is supposed to help with a lot of like laser guided munitions, uh, but the Javelin, the way it guide, because the way its flight is it goes straight up and straight down, and it locks onto the vehicle when you're aiming on it. Now the arena system, and I don't know how many of their tanks have arena installed on them. Arena is a hard kill system, and what it basically does is it has a sensor on top of it, and it senses where the munition is coming from, and basically what it does is it shoots this charge out, and this charge explodes so far off the tank, and it puts like a screening of metal for the missile to hit, so it detonates before it hits the tank. The unfortunate bad side, or the side effect of it, is that if you have infantry outside of that tank when it pops off the arena system, your infantry guys are going to be in a world of hurt because they're going to catch a lot of shrapnel, not only from the arena system but also from that missile when it blows up as well. The U.S. uses the Israeli-built system, but like I said, and I don't think that the Russians have actually tested it in combat. They've sold a lot of T-90 tanks to various countries, especially India, but I just don't know if any of those tanks came with that system on it. But the issue is this: is that besides the minor conflicts in Chechnya and what was the other place? Georgia, I think it was.
Yep.
Okay, so Georgia. Realistically, the only other time that they've really had armor used a lot was in Afghanistan, which some of these tanks weren't really around or weren't really used back in Afghanistan. So there were smaller offensives than what's going on right now, and it's good they can do all the trials you want and you can do everything like that, but other trials are always still somewhat under controlled conditions, and trials are never going to simulate actual combat of what the rigors of what a combat vehicle has to go through, and sometimes that's how they have to find out whether they're good or not. Perfect example is that is the Russians. They were testing their T-14 armadas. They sent so many of them down to Syria to basically try them out and see how they would fare in combat, and they basically failed miserably. So they had to pull all the T-14 armadas back and get all the bugs taken care of in the systems to make them operational. And even up to this date, they've only built like 100 of the T-14s, and I think they're still trying to fix the bugs out of them right now. So that's another reason why you had the problems with it.
Thank you. That's a great explanation. One last question: the fact that the Russians are bringing a lot of their older stuff, is that indicative that they're kind of running out, that they don't want to commit anymore? What's your thought about that?
Just because it's old doesn't mean it's any good. Example, if you compare the BMP2s, which is mainly there's more of those on frontline combat service than anything else. The same BMP2s that they're using in Ukraine are the same BMP2s that they're bringing from the east. Same with their MTLBs. Probably not so many of their tanks, but a lot of their other assets, they're the same exact assets that they're using. They may not just get used as much, which is actually kind of more. It's actually worse if they're not exercised and operated as much as they should be. But the only thing that they might be lacking is like some of the newer upgrades that with the newest version of the T-72s and whatever upgrades they have on the T-80s, because that's what we're seeing more up in the north. The only places we're really seeing T-90s is down in the south. That's all the pictures I've seen so far have been all down in the south. So they may not have all the upgrades, but they may actually have armor upgrades. And the train I saw, the one video I saw, all I mainly saw in it was BMP2s, some self-propelled howitzers, and some MTLBs. I wasn't able to see any tanks on there, so I couldn't tell you what type of what version of the T-70Ts or T-80s, if they're bringing in T-80s that were on that train.
Thank you.
Matt, did you have a question?
Amanda? Not sure if Amanda requested. John, you have a question?
Yeah, this may be a quick one. And apologies if we've talked about this recently. What is the latest update on the use of cluster munitions? I've seen some things circulating, and some of it I know I've seen several days ago. I don't know how new it is, or if this is just recycling of the same information. Do we have a catalog of confirmed use or any independent verification?
There, I have actually one of the listeners actually did provide a couple of photos to me. If I remember correctly, I think they're a 9K33M7, something like that, cluster munitions. Um, so that was confirmed, and it was actually they had the little dispensers that they use, and I was able to identify them and fact check them to ensure that they were in fact that weapon system.
And the number of confirmed uses, is it greater than one or two at this point?
From some of the pictures, yeah, I think I've seen 4 pictures of these canisters, but sometimes it's hard to distinguish because between if it's especially if it's like an anti-tank cluster munition. It's sometimes hard to tell if you get like a lot of like if you get a BM21 daytime. It's sometimes hard to tell, but there are confirmed uses. I'm just not sure how many.
Okay, appreciate it. Yeah, I saw one video and then an image of the the shell or the cartridge. I'm not sure the right term. And I knew the picture of the shell. I saw several days ago. Didn't know if the video was new or related. So I know those are kind of tricky to really confirm from remote.
So the Ukrainian Ministry of Internal Affairs is now confirming that or they're reporting that the plant has been, the Zaporizhia nuclear plant, which is where all the fighting occurred last night, has been retaken by Ukrainian forces. But the Russian military still controls the town that it's located in, as well as the perimeter of the facility.
Welcome, Granger.
Good
Hey
day
guys,
to
just want to let you
everyone.
know I'm gonna bounce out. I will see you all tomorrow, and have a good night.
Also,
And
before
I'll
you
see you
head
guys
out,
tomorrow. Yeah, what's up?
do you want to tell make Patrick feel bad that he missed all the military and combat discussion?
Oh, yeah. Every time I have amazing military conversation, Patrick always bails on me, and he misses out, and I need his expertise. But it's normal.
I'm sorry, also, I had stuff to take care of here.
Wow, geez, you make
I'll
me
get you
feel
tomorrow, man.
so.
All right.
You make me feel so special,
All right, have a
unwanted
good one,
now.
guys.
Yeah, have a good one.
Always Wolverine, always.
I just woke up from a really, really long sleep. So I'm geared up for about 2 more days of no proper sleep monitoring.
So, Granger, you're going to be monitoring the Odessa ships, obviously, and how they make their way out.
Or how will they return back? Ramblings in the frequency were to be believed, Navy High Command basically won against overall command. What that means is the Navy High Command doesn't is quote unquote disobeying orders from overall battlefield command with regards to landings. So yes, the weather is bad, but this is the many attempts of using the weather as a what do you call this, as a reason to not land. Like they could land everywhere, but they always use the weather as a reason, which is half true. The other half true is that out of any branches, they literally are the most sensitive to personal losses because all they are instead compared to the army, they are what to call this? They're almost professionally. Their troops, their ship crews are almost professional, not contracts. Well, they are contracts, but they are professional contracts. Basically, they have served for many contracts, many years, and their naval infantry is basically pure professionals, not conscripts. So it will be hard to replace them, especially with the amount of training they have been dumping in with if I recall, 1/4 of the Navy's budget goes into naval infantry training and equipment. Even though the equipment is a bit their training is good. So if any of the naval infantry equipment and the troops were lost due to an ill-advised ill-advised amphibious assault commanded by overall battlefield command, then we will see the aftermath of this conflict, we will see internal conflict between Navy and well the Army because the Army is basically commanding this war. So yeah, so the to sum it up, if they are returning back to Sevastopol right now, the amphibious ships, it means that the Navy is choosing lives over victories.
Oh,
Hey
since
guys.
Ben.
Yeah, I was just about to say I gotta head out of here. I gotta get to sleep. I got work again all day tomorrow. But I appreciate everybody.
Thanks.
Have a good one.
Yeah, of course. Y'all have
Thanks.
a great night, guys.
Does anyone have any questions for Granger about the the Navy or Brian?
I was just curious, not about the Navy, but I was just curious about, does anyone know what happened to General Gerasimov? So there was this report that he had been sacked from his position, but we didn't hear anything after that, and it's kind of odd. And Patrick made the point before that this is the largest ground operation by the Russian army, and so it seems odd that we've not heard from, unless I missed something, from the senior generals in the Russian army about this operation at all.
I haven't heard anything beyond the rumor that he was sacked, but if he wasn't, he's probably laying low, considering the scale of this ongoing disaster they're involved in. He's probably hoping that Putin blames someone lower down the food chain than him.
Also, and yeah, breakthrough they did. Breakthrough that they got stopped multiple ways. So, but supervised by higher up, not the army themselves, but higher up in the chain, like from basically in the Ministry of Defense, like the general chief of general staff, maybe Shoigu would be example, or Gerasimov. So they're basically commanding all of this, not the heads of the branches, because that will be a tall order when this cluster shit show. Well, I apologize for the word, but that is the reality. to be frank, when this is all over, there will be a tall order for them to answer for the losses. So basically, they're distancing themselves. The Air Force General, I haven't heard even. The Navy, well, um the last communique I heard from them was back in January. Said that about the exercise, so on and so forth. But that's about it. And the ramblings I heard from the backstage was all decisions for any related to the Navy would be handed to whatever fleet is handling the operations at the Black Sea. VDV, there's no talks about the generals also. The army is silent. So, yeah, most of the noise is coming from higher up in the MOD. So, all generals, senior generals of the branches are basically silent to this.
Thank you.
Watchdog. Hey guys, how's it going? I just had a couple of questions that I was hoping you guys could help me verify. I seen a video today coming out of the Kursk region of Russia of the Russian First Tank Battalions. Their armory essentially exploding, and I'm wondering if any of you guys have seen anything about that or heard anything. I heard some reports that the Russians were claiming that essentially that was an accident. If anybody could speak on that before I move on to my next question.
If it might actually be helpful if you can post the any kind of content like that on the net, just so people can also access it. And then
how do I do that?
Yeah, there's a share button on any tweet, and then on that there'll be the option to post it to the nest if you're a speaker. Has anyone seen this as well, or is this new? If it's new, then maybe we can come back to it once people have had a chance to look into it a little bit more. As soon as you've posted it, Watchdog.
I've seen the video, but it kind of looks like a video that we saw a couple of days ago in Ukraine. But I mean, it was at nighttime, so it's hard to tell. So yeah, I mean, I've heard about it and seen a video that was supposedly it, but that's about it.
Yeah, I don't have much on this.
Okay, if nobody else has much on that, another thing I wanted to talk about is these reports coming from Belarusia that partisans attacked and burned a train there that was sending supplies to Ukraine. Does anybody have anything on that?
That to me is new, but there were talks or there were reports of partisans hitting supply trains in Belarus, between Belarus to Russia and Belarus to Ukraine. So that might be related.
Also, that video is actually on YouTube. I just found it.
So these new videos of Russian trains coming from Far East, they're loaded with older BMP-1s, MTLBs, and Shilkas, you know, the anti-air, the outdated anti-air systems.
Yeah,
So
ZSU 23-4.
Right, it's like they're scraping the bottom, the barrel.
I mean, looking at the equipment that they are sending in Ukraine right now, like for example the Tunguska, that's already scraping the barrel since the Panzer air defense system is basically of the same lineage as Tunguska. And to be frank, Those are bad against aircraft. They're good against helicopters, but bad against aircraft, mainly because their missiles weren't designed to hit very maneuverable targets like fighter jets. They're good against helicopters, also tanks, vehicles, but jets, planes, yeah, no, those are basically equipment that they said in an attempt to subdue Ukrainian aircraft, but those are really bad equipment to use.
Really quickly before we get to the other folks, just wanted to note that I'm seeing that on the counteroffense in Kharkov, it seems that the 488th Motorized Rifle Regiment was completely destroyed. Can we confirm that, Wolverine? I'll send you the info for that. And then we can, I think, John, you had your hand up first.
Not hearing anybody else. My comment was circling back to the conversation we were having about the status of Gerasimov. I don't. Has anybody actually seen confirmation of that? I know we had that conversation the other night. I tried to get a comment in. I saw that Alexander Vindeman had posted around September. It's late in the night. February 27th. The news of that report, and I recall shortly after he kind of backtracked that or rescinded, as maybe he was being overly optimistic or wishful in his thinking that had occurred, but I can't find that. I don't know if anybody else actually had confirmation other than kind of Twitter rumors. But while I'll wait for anybody else to have info on that, to the conversation about the tanks coming from the east, the 24-3, is there, do we have any reason to expect, or would it be a valuable tactic to, disguise the number of sort of useful tanks by hiding obsolete ones in a convoy like that? So satellite imagery would, underestimate or overestimate the force of the resupply and reinforcement.
Wolverine?
As far as hiding them, there are specific characteristics of the tanks when you compare them older ones against the newer ones. One of the biggest things is obviously the armor upgrades that are on them. There's also a power plant upgrade. Those would be, obviously you won't be able to tell those as much, but it'd be higher if they're putting them straight from someplace onto a train. They're not. I doubt they're going to have any chance at all to actually camouflage them like that. They're just worried about getting armor out there. But like I said, without seeing a video of the tanks themselves, there is I'm not going to be able to tell from a video until I get a video or not. And then I'll be able to look at it and say, okay, these are actually upgraded variants and stuff like that, and such. Now the other thing is that even though the ZSU 234 is a older system, okay, that thing is a tank's worst nightmare still, and it's definitely an infantryman's worst nightmare. Okay, and the reason being is this. Okay, and I wish all Source was here because he would be able to double tap on this one. The ZSU's high rate of fire and the fact that it's firing 23 millimeter shells means that you may not punch the armor, but the thing is you're going to destroy everything else on that turret. You're going to take out its optics, you can take out its sights, its secondary weapon systems, any cargo and stuff like that on it. Okay, so you can actually severely degrade the operational status of a tank by firing a lot of the ZSU rounds at it. It is protected against small arms and shrapnel splinters and stuff like that, so it's not going to take hits obviously from an anti-tank weapon or a tank, but just because it's older doesn't mean it's worth, because you could the U.S. used to use the old 50 caliber quad machine guns. They'd use them against air, but you could also use them against troops too. And so the other thing is Russian equipment. I mean, realistically, if a lot of the older equipment sometimes is better off because of how long it's lasted. I mean, the Afghanis are still running T-55s from the Afghanistan, from the Soviet occupation of Afghanistan from the 70s, right? With bare minimum maintenance. Okay. They're still keeping them up and running, and it's amazing that they do. But a lot of the Russian equipment is actually just that reliable. So don't dismiss just because they're sending older equipment out there. Okay, because what they may not make up for in quantity, they can definitely make up in, or sorry, what they can't make up in quality, they're going to definitely make up in quantity, just by having the sheer numbers. So just because they're old doesn't mean that they're not still effective and or useful.
Yeah, it's
so
late at night. I was trying to do too many things at once. I was imprecise. I didn't mean, I said obsolete, but I did mean old. So
yeah.
point taken.
But another thing also is when he brought up the two S6Ms, Tunguskas, and the Pantir S1s. So the Pantir S1s and the two S6M Tunguskas are entirely, they are probably 20 to 30 years apart in when their design was and the stuff like that. And the reason you can tell is this. So the Pantir S1 uses basically a similar turret to the 2S6M Tunguska. The 2S6M Tunguska only has a maximum altitude of 3.5 kilometers, and it's got a range of about 8 kilometers with the missiles that it has on it. Now, the Panzer S1 was developed about 20 to 30 years later, and it actually is able to engage not only aircraft but also precision guided munitions and UAVs. So I'm trying to find if there's an actual range on this thing right now, which I'm trying to look up. So they can actually engage subsonic cruise missiles at a range of 12 kilometers and an altitude of 6,000 meters. And they can attack high speed air-to-ground missiles at a range of 7 kilometers and altitude of 6 kilometers, and that far exceeds what the Tunguska could ever do. They also came up with a new missiles. Wow, that are smaller with a smaller fragmentation warhead, but a speed of Mach 5. These just came out in 2020, and they do have a maximum range of 5 to 7 kilometers, but it also allows up to 48 to be mounted on a Panzer turret. So the Panzers are still very effective weapons. They have a good detection range of about 40 kilometers out from their position. And on the roads, they're a little bit more mobile and a little bit more easily to be used on the hardballs and obviously a tracked vehicle. The other thing with the 2S6M Tunguska and both the Panzer is their guns. They continually they train all the time where they actually engage ground targets with their 30 millimeter guns. Now, here's a good reference of this. In the U.S. inventory of all our armored vehicles, tanks, and stuff like that, there's only 2 vehicles that would withstand the hits from those 30 millimeter guns, and that's the M1A1 tank series and the M88A2 Hercules. Those are the only 2 vehicles that I know that can actually be fairly well protected on them because of the thickness of the armor. Anything else down is pretty much mincemeat for those weapon systems. So even they may not be great aggressive against air assets all the time, they can be more than effective against ground targets, and they do use them for that as well.
To add to what Wolverine said, and probably as a correction, they The Pantsir S1 was basically basically an improvement to the Tunguska. So basically, it's a spiritual successor. Problem is, the Russian army were supposed to not use it because there were issues that were seen during its initial and until now. One of them is that the radar cannot spot targets that are slower than 50 meters per second. So those are that's drone territory. So the that cars are having that kind of speed means the radars cannot track them. The other part is the missiles. While they are fast, they are what they call this. They are two-stage, but the second stage is an unpowered missile, and it's hit to kill. So what that means is that you need to hit the target and you need to hit the target for it to be disabled. Compared to other missiles, which are fragmentation, where it explodes nearby. The Pantsir and Tunguska's missiles are basically hit to kill, and they are shaped like a dart where they are highly optimized for shooting down helicopters and aircraft that is coming towards them but not away from them. Plus that second stage is unpowered, so any target from what the documents say was any target that is not within 6 kilometers or so and is actively maneuvering, the missiles would lose its effectiveness pretty quickly. So that was the reason that why I say that Pantsir is kind of bad when it comes to fighter jets. Is because its missiles until now, even the new one, is using a type of missile that isn't good at countering actively maneuvering targets because those missiles lose energy pretty quickly due to their design. Although they are still good, helicopters, low flying aircraft, even tanks, IFVs, even against infantry, but fast moving targets like supersonic aircraft like MiG 29s, yeah, they might have a problem due to the fact that, well, the missiles were bad, and that was the reason that the Russian army air defense refused to use them. But we see them now because they were shoehorned to use it because they don't have any more choice. Because if they don't use the Panzer, they are forced to rely on the Tunguska, which is also going old by that point. So they have to use Panzer even though it has its growing pains of the missile not able to engage high speed, actively maneuvering targets due to the missile.
Okay, so your info might be a little outdated because it actually will track a target at 4 meters per second. And it actually, the missiles do come equipped with a HE frag missile.
Since the info that I was relying on is from Russian Army Air Defense generals that were part in a forum where they were evaluating the Panzer back in 2012, where they exported it initially to UAE. They list 15 problems with the system, and one of them.
That's why, because they downgrade all their export systems. They do not give. There is actually a specific thing, and there were 2 different places where I looked at. And actually, both of them said that, and it happens everywhere. The United States does it too, unless we operate it. All their systems that they export they're not as good as the originals. So that could be why that the numbers that from those ones that were sent out to UAE are different, is because that they're export versions and they're not the actual ones that the Russians are using.
Actually, the ones that the generals were talking about is not the UAE, but the Panzer S1M. Although we never see the M in the designation, we usually see them as Panzer S1. We see them in the radars because they are flat, not the curved radar to cameras for targeting. It was listed. I might post it or I might send the documents if possible.
No, you don't have to, because I actually have like 4 different sources I pull up on that. One of them is Jane's, which I already have it here. And there's 2 other sites that I use for actually verifying the numbers on that.
Yeah, but from combat experience, even back in Syria, they the army air defense generals basically don't like the system as a concept, because against drones, what was noted in Kimmermim Air Base, they have an effectiveness rate of 19% compared to Tor, which is 85% against drones. And there's a reason why, yes, there is new, but you only see them in one unit and not widespread use within the armed forces. You only see them in one army unit and not the other, because they're relying on other systems, mostly Tor. So
Okay, and now you said the Panzer S1. The Panzer S1 is actually the export version.
can you clarify that again? You get choppy.
The Panzer S1M is the export version.
The one that is set up in a man chassis, the one that UAE got was basically the first version, because the development story, to be summed up, is that UAE funded boosted the Panzer's development program. So they wanted the system first. They wanted it before the Russian army. So they injected some close to $100 million in development costs back in 1990, around 1990s, or late 1990s. They injected around that amount of dollars to the program to speed up the development, since 1990s is a bit rough when it comes to post-Soviet Russia. So they needed the money for the development. So the Emiratis injected the funds, they speed up the development, and UAE got the very first modern rendition of the Panzer S1 back in 2008 in a MAN chassis. Later revisions, we would see them in Kamaz twap, basically Russian twap chassis, and those are vastly improved, but their one pitfall is still the missiles. The radar is fine, the vehicle is fine. It's just that the missiles, they still have growing pains per lots of groaning from servicemen about the missiles being problematic. Mostly because they were trying to hit targets that are either slower or too fast for the missiles to try to engage.
Okay. I think because the folks have been waiting a long time with their hands up. Peter, go for it. Peter.
Peter.
Okay, Watchdogs.
Hey, I just wanted to ask Wolverine. You said the video that I posted had been seen on YouTube. I couldn't find that personally. I just wanted to know specifically if you could tell me what the date is on that video, because I was seeing some reports from, well, not reports, but there's this website called Vanuski, where you can use it to view air quality in Russia, and there was a significant decrease in the Kursk region, specifically where the Russian First Tank Armory's headquarters is located. So I'm just wondering if you could give me a date on that video on YouTube.
Yeah,
Did you
give
say
me a
that was in
second.
Kursk, by the way? Just to be clear, right?
Correct.
That's where the
Kursk.
explosion supposedly was, yeah.
Go for it, Wolverine.
No, I'm looking up the video because I was sitting here and it went through like 3 other videos now, so I have to look it up real quick and see from when what the date on it was.
Also, there's a submarine that returned recently to Sevastopol, riding high. Quick update.
Unfortunately, it's cloudy in Kursk, so we can't look at the NASA fire imagery, unfortunately.
That's a good idea to look at that. Sorry, a good idea to look at the air quality. I didn't even thought to do that yet.
Yeah, I'll send you guys the link to the website. You just gotta put it back to around 4 a.m. last night, and you'll see the air quality take a serious dip in Kursk.
Cool.
So this. Oh, sorry. My apologies.
Yeah, you better let me talk. I'm kidding. I was just saying thanks for him sending the link thing.
Cybersecurity. Go ahead. So the video I found it. It says it's actually posted March 4th.
Okay.
And it has massive secondary explosions going on. It's about a 5-minute long video, I think. Oh no, it's only 1 minute and 14 seconds of the clip that they have on there. But yeah, it's massive, massive secondaries, and it is marked. It says it is uploaded today.
Where is it from?
Kursk.
Kursk. Okay, that one. Gotcha.
Yeah, it's the 1st Russian Tank Battalion's armory or supposed headquarters. I'm not sure exactly which one. I haven't been able to pin that down. But yeah, in Kursk.
Kit?
Hey folks, thanks so much again for this panel. Super awesome and informative. I had a question actually about the Russian power hierarchy. I know a palace coup is super unlikely, but if there was to be one, who would be a likely successor? Is there like a popular person waiting in the wings, so to speak?
It is the $1 million question, and unfortunately, we don't have M here to talk about it. But yeah, I think it's a very big question. We don't know.
Super cool. I just had another quick one about maintenance, because we've been seeing those horrific videos of those poor trucks with all their wheel seals busted. I used to work up north in oil sands as a heavy-duty mechanic, and we didn't have that kind of problem, obviously, and we were about a crew of 8 working on a fleet of 250 trailers and trucks. What kind of maintenance would be normal in the military in terms of like fleet to crew doing maintenance ratio, and like how often?
Wolverine?
Okay, so real quick, so you're talking about you've worked on civilian vehicles, right? Civilian heavy vehicles or military?
Yeah, civilian, like Kenworth and lubricant haulers, Super Bs, that kind of stuff.
Okay, so a lot of I'm going to mainly go off of the military, U.S. military side, which is, unless I can actually find a Russian maintenance manual written in English, which I'm going to say is highly doubtful. Typically, though, we do have our services, just like the civilian side has. We go off of either like a quarterly, annual, or biannual, and sometimes we'll also go off of a mileage-based service. So primarily, we go off of a mileage-based service, and then we refer to the annual if the vehicle hasn't hit a set amount of miles in the time frame. So some of the things that it's just like civilian vehicles. If you get a truck that sits up in a parking lot for too long, the seals dry out, tires dry rot. If it's not exercised enough, components will fail. If it's not lubricated, all the grease points hit. It just causes more failures longer down the road. I mean, obviously, it'll be able to last for a little bit, but if you don't do a lot of those things and do your continuous inspections on them, it will cause them to actually fail much more quickly if they're not doing it. So um, the military side is basically kind of on par to an extent of what the civilian side does. But on the military side, though, they do skip a lot of steps sometimes, just because you get some dude out there who's just like, why am I doing this by myself? And he'll have this whole list of stuff on there. And, let's say it says, hey, change air filter, change oil filter, expect brakes, and something like that, right? Well, he's like, well, okay, I'll do the oil filter, change oil, I'll do the air filter, yeah, no biggie. But man, screw that. I don't want to pull the tires off and have to check every single one of them tires, the brake assemblies on those trucks. So, and it happens even here in the United States. Military personnel, sometimes they just don't want to do it and they'll pencil with the paperwork. So, I'm gonna surmise that probably a lot of the same thing happens over there. Um, they do have stocks that they can pull spares off of if need be, and they should obviously have their own spare parts on hand, and such. The thing though that's going to really play against the Russians though is that it hasn't been since can somebody tell me how long the fighting in Chechnya and Georgia last?
In Chechnya, it depends. The first campaign did last for at least 4 months solid. Then it kind of stalled. And the second war, I think a year or so, at least. And then there was insurgencies that lasted for 4 or 5 more years.
Okay, so because of that experience, unless all those people, have rotated out, which is more than likely, the problem you also get is you actually lose the people who have the expertise and the knowledge in those systems, and with carrying off this maintenance. And the thing is this is if you have somebody who's actually been in a war zone and remembers how much they had to do maintenance wise and stuff like that, those guys are going to remember the experiences and say, no, this is why we need to do this. If you have a bunch of new guys who've never been in combat, that can actually reduce the maintenance that you do, because everybody's like, oh, why do I have to do this now? I'll just do it later. And obviously they forget about, doing that maintenance or replacing those components that need to be replaced annually anyways. So the other thing I did hear, which a gentleman, he posted that great article about the tires dry rotting, and you as well as I know, the tires all have date stamps, and usually they don't use them when they're so far out anymore because they have the potential to blow. The civilian side obviously is way more stricter than that on the military side. So a lot of the guys in the military side don't realize about even checking the sidewalls to see, where the date is, or even if there is a date or some kind of marking for a date on the tires. So that's another issue. And then the third other thing I heard is that, which I haven't really been able to confirm this one, is that the Russians were buying tires from China, and specific tires that they were buying had a very high failure rate compared to the tires actually made in Russia. So if they are actually doing that, that's another issue that can lead to the failure and the breakdown of components. The other thing that's going to affect that also is, as we've all seen what's happening with the supply and sustainment part of the war, it's failed. So even if those vehicles go down, they're not being able to readily get maintenance and or even recovered due to a lack of logistical supply support.
Wow, so it sounds like a complete, absolute failure. Like they're losing all their journeymen and then they're putting out apprentices on those. That's bad. Well, thank you so much, guys. Appreciate it. You can take me off speaker.
Hey, I'm going to jet. I have to take a drive tomorrow, so I'm out of here, and it's been a pleasure, and I'll see you all sometime later.
Take care.
So, sorry to just keep harping on this curse thing, but I think it could actually be really important as far as Russian supplies going towards Kiev could go, given Kursk's location to Ukraine. I posted the source that I was using to view the air quality in Kursk last night, and you could see it taking a serious dip between 10 and 11 p.m. last night. I just think people should take a look at that. I mean, even if even if this isn't some action, right? Even if it's just some type of accident, the fact that that area specifically is seeing that type of an explosion could have some serious consequences on Russian tanks being able to keep up their repairs.
Yeah, no, it probably is kind of a big deal, that's for sure. Somebody messaged me a minute ago saying they wonder, or it could possibly be that Russian soldiers are sabotaging things so that they can't continue going into Ukraine. It's like that's an idea. Could be.
Hey, folks, you mind if I mic up here?
So yeah, I'll do you and then TV because I can't.
Yeah,
I wasn't paying attention.
Peter,
Sorry.
so we've tried to call you earlier, but I think your thing crashed.
Yeah, exactly. My my phone app crashed here, so I apologize. And Grammar, if you had something to say, I apologize if I cut you off. Were you finished?
Yeah, no, I was just saying, you can go and then TV because I wasn't sure who, what, when, where, why. So yeah, go ahead.
All right. So I know that people know me mostly from like some of these open source intelligence spaces that we've been running this week. But we've had a lot of feedback that people want to get involved, and they don't necessarily want to sign up to fight a war, or they don't want to necessarily catalog bodies, parts, or destroyed vehicles. They're trying to find some other way of getting involved. And so, in consultation with a couple of other people in humanitarian spaces, I wanted to invite everybody to a workshop. We're going to try and do these twice a week. The kickoff workshop will be tomorrow. It's in my feed. If you guys go to my own personal feed, if someone to toss that up into the nest above, that'd be great. This will be Saturday, the 5th of March. It will be at 12 p.m. Eastern U.S. time, 9 a.m. Pacific time, and that'll be 7 p.m. Kyiv time. So, use a time calculator if you're in any other time zone. This will be the first meeting. It's probably going to run about 2 hours long, maybe 3, and it's going to be more of a workshop than a briefing. What we're going to try and do here is talk about how to be a digital humanitarian, how to organize folks towards specific aspects. Some people want to bring medical experience. Some people want to bring legal experience. Some people want to bring logistics.
Mic check.
Yeah, go ahead. I think he accidentally pressed the mute button, Peter.
Yeah.
Oh, damn it! I did press the mute button. I apologize about that. So I've been consulting with some experts. We're going to have a couple of folks, people who know Tara Mylensky from these spaces, know that she's been passionate. She's actually adopted 4 Ukrainian children over her time, so she has a very particular passion about Ukraine. And then Jen from the disaster assistance team, she has all sorts of experience with organizing for humanitarian responses. That's some of the core folks. If people would like to be part of this core team, if you'd like to be a contributor to helping organize digital humanitarians for Ukraine, just DM me your Gmail address. Let me know.
You can also see that in my feed that I have, and I see a couple of folks already popping in. There's a Google Doc about some of the group ground rules we're going to abide by, and we'll go over these tomorrow. But again, I just wanted to thank everybody who's been bringing attention to the fact that there's more than just the military aspects of response to this. There's all this humanitarian need. A million people are already refugees heading outside of Ukraine. We don't even know how many people are refugees within their own country. So even if the shooting was to stop today, I've mentioned this before, but even if the shooting was to stop today, you still have lifelong traumas. You still have people who've lost family members. You still have entire cities to rebuild. So the work for that is going to start now, and it's going to continue long after the shooting stops. So with that, I'm complete. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Yeah, that's why we bring first-hand accounts here, and we want Ukrainian voices to be heard here. So yeah, please step in as well, and we want to kind of bolster these voices so that they're being heard, not just in Ukraine, but all over the globe. So this is the message that we are here trying to promote, as we did with Marina, and as we're doing with Oleg from Kyiv and many others who step in and share their experiences that are also pertaining towards or relate toward humanitarian effort and their situation, which is challenging to say the least. Thanks.
Yeah, definitely. And the other thing too is this is going to be more workshop oriented, like I said. So if people then want to create tiger teams, small teams, community oriented teams, steal these ideas, steal these methods, and we'll go over some of the principles about being a good digital humanitarian. But again, this is more for just setting expectations and really piloting you on like how you can help and how you can help best, most effectively.
Thanks, Peter. TB, you've had your hand up for a while.
Hi, guys. First of all, thanks for doing this. I've been following along, but I just had a couple of questions. Is there or has there been confirmation that Magomed, the Chechen general, is actually dead?
Sorry, my turn to accidentally press the wrong button.
Yeah, no worries. So please proceed. Please proceed with your question.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hi. So I was just wanting to know if there is confirmation if the Chechen general Magomed is actually dead or where that stands. And then I was reading tonight that they're sending in 1,000 more mercenaries allegedly, and I was wondering if somebody could speak to the role that they play on the ground and how they're being taken care of. And then the final question I had is it's sort of along this tire conversation and using these knockoff Chinese tires. How do we see, does weather and ground getting warmer, does that play a role in what we see happening over the next few weeks? And that's it.
So in regards of that commander, yeah, he was killed. Apparently, there was even immediately after that happened, there was a Dagestani official who kind of presented his condolences to Ramzan Kadyrov. And what was the second part of the questions of your question?
I'm reading reports tonight that they're apparently Russia's sending in allegedly 1,000 more mercenaries, and I was wondering if we know how, like, sort of what their role, like, are they just causing problems and sort of causing fear, or are they more tactical, and have we seen evidence of them being eliminated?
So I think you're referring to the 1,000 Wagner group folks that have kind of been in Syria that are being transported to Ukraine. I don't, from the folks that we've been talking to, it doesn't seem like they will make much of a battlefield difference. But feel free to speak to this if you want, Peter.
think they were primarily used to solidify this initially demoralized army, Russian army, occupation Russian army in Donetsk and Luhansk, the first and the second, because they were in the worst shape whatsoever. And well, even that happened, that still didn't help their cause. They didn't manage to kind of significantly push into Ukrainian territory from the east. So that's where Wagner mercenaries were used initially in the eastern Ukraine from occupied Donetsk and Luhansk regions, because that formation of Russian army was basically mostly forcefully mobilized local population, which was unwilling to partake in that whatsoever.
I see. Okay. And then the last question, I just want to know what if there will be any, does it benefit Ukraine that maybe the ground is warming up and these vehicles are having all these issues? Does that put them in a better situation, or will it make a difference?
Does anyone want to elaborate on that?
I'm no expert by any means, but from what I've been seeing is that Russia already has, I think, 70 to 90% of the majority of its forces already in Ukraine. So as far as the snow melting, I mean, it may bog down supply lines, but I'm not sure if it'll have any effect on the frontline combat.
92% deployed.
Yeah, 92% deployed as of now. I mean, I have heard over tonight that it's been, and they're probably committing even more. Just a question: is anybody hearing anything about the counteroffensive? Also, I'm hearing about Yuma has been captured by Russian forces.
So I've seen a recent one, that supposedly Ukrainian counterattack succeeded significantly, and they actually managed to reach Russian-Ukrainian border in the east, in the Kharkiv section. So again, this is unconfirmed, but I've seen a couple of those pop up. I believe you were mentioning Hostomel. Hostomel supposedly was also retaken by Ukrainian troops.
Okay, yes, that makes sense.
And just to add to what Walter was saying, the report just suggesting that they were pushed back 15 kilometers. So pretty significant counteroffensive.
That's good. So that's good. I haven't heard a lot of intel come in, and I've been asking. My sources have all been dry as well, and they've said that well, it's kind of eerie, and it's also kind of, you worry, right? What's coming from the Russian side next?
8%.
Yes, or more strategic attacks from Russian strategic bombers from Saratov, Engels, or who knows?
I mean, they're running out of artillery and all of that. I mean, we've discussed that. So really, they're going to have to go air.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking exactly. They've run out of unless they bring in another 100,000 reserves. Yeah,
but that'll take weeks or months.
Oh yeah, of course it will. Oh yes, it'll take weeks, and even that, I don't think that's going to be very successful considering their situation right now, even in their own country.
Anyway, I'm going to head out, but thanks everyone. Nice speaking to you all.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Okay, that was impressively long run. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we did 19 hours straight. That was pretty long.
Have a good one out in UK, and be in touch. Get some sleep.
Yeah, get some sleep.